Hello students, this is Module 4, Lesson 6, and we are going to skip the first page word problems. We're going to skip the second page word problems. We're going to the third page where it says exercises. Okay, it says solve each equation. Some of them may have radicals in their solution. Because when you think radicals, you need to think something under a square root. Okay, this builds on a little bit what you did yesterday. So you see these are already set equal to 0, and we're solving for x here. So following our rules of math, if we want to get x by itself, the first thing we're going to do is add this 9 to both sides. That gives me 3x squared equals 9. Then, continuing to follow the rules of math, we want just the x by itself, so we're going to divide both sides by 3. That leaves us with x squared equals 3. And the way that we undo squaring something is to take the square root. If I take the square root of the left side, I have to take the square root of the right side. Now, this is a little bit different because the square root of 3 is not going to be a whole number. Because 3 is not a perfect square. So we're going to leave this in radical form as the square root of 3. But remember, when we take the square root of something, we get a positive answer and a negative answer. Okay, let's have a little sidebar over here. A little side conversation. The reason that works is if I take a number like 5 and I square it, what do I get? I get 25. But if I take negative 5 and I square it, negative 5 times negative 5 is still positive 25. So that means if I work backwards, the square root of 25 can be 5, or it can be negative 5. And so we can write that out as plus or minus. Or I can write it out as x equals 5 or x equals negative 5. Not 5 and negative 5 in this one, is it? My mistake. X equals the square root of 3 or x equals negative square root of 3. And make sure that negative is on the outside of that square root sign. Either way is correct. But generally, we're going to use this top way. Okay? Let's try another one. Number 2. Again, we're just going to follow the rules of math. Okay? I have something in parentheses, so I can't add or subtract or multiply or divide anything out of that right now. But I do have this squared right here. So the only thing I can do to start off with is I can take the square root. If I take the square root of that side, I have to take the square root of that side. So the square root of x minus 3 squared is just x minus 3. And the square root of 1 is plus or minus 1. Okay, so we have 2 ways we can solve this. We've got x minus 3 equals 1. Also have to consider that x minus 3 could equal negative 1. So I took this and I wrote it out into 2 equations here. And I have to solve both of those. So to solve the first one, I would just add 3 to both sides. I get x equals 4. To solve the second one, I would add 3 to both sides. I get x equals 2. So my 2 possible answers here are x equals 4 or x equals 2. Okay, for number 3, I have to think, what's the first thing I should do? I don't want to take the square root of both sides necessarily. I have 4 times something in parentheses. So to undo that multiplication, I'm going to divide. When I divide, the 4's cancel into a big O 1. I'm just left with x minus 3 squared equals 1/4. Okay, and then the only thing I can do on that side is take the square root. If I do it on the left side, I have to do it on the right side. So on the left side, that leaves x minus 3 equals. Now, the square root of 1/4 is 1/2. But again, I have to consider positive 1/2 and negative 1/2. Okay, so I'm going to set this up two ways. X minus 3 equals 1/2. Or x minus 3 equals negative 1/2. We'll zoom out a little bit. My numbers were getting a little chunky there. Okay, so when I solve, add 3. So I get x equals, guys, 3 and 1/2 can be written as 7/2. On this side, add 3 to both sides. Sorry, that should be add 3. And on this side, I get x equals 5/2. I got a little messy there. Let me try that again. There we go, 5/2. Could you change it to decimal form? I mean, I guess if you wanted to. Could you write it as x equals 3 and 1/2 and x equals 2 and 1/2? Yes. Could you write it as x equals 3.5 and x equals 2.5? Yes, you could. If you're afraid of fractions. But guys, stop being afraid of fractions. Okay, let's try number 4. Okay, again on number 4, the first thing that I can see that I can do is divide both sides by 2. And when I do that, 2 divided by 2 just becomes a big 1. It leaves me with x minus 3 squared equals 6. Again, the only option I have here is to take the square root of the left side. If I do it to the left side, I have to do the same thing to the right side. That gives me x minus 3 equals plus or minus the square root of 6. Because again, 6 is not a perfect square, so we're going to leave it as plus or minus the square root of 6. So I have to write this problem out two different ways. X minus 3 equals the square root of 6 positive, and x minus 3 equals negative square root of 6. Make sure your negative is on the outside. If it's on the inside, that means something totally different. When I solve, add 3 to both sides. Guys, I'm just going to leave this as x equals 3 plus the square root of 6. Or, for here, if I add 3 to both sides, I get x equals 3 minus the square root of 6. So this is one of those answers where I may have a radical in my solution. Okay, don't use the calculator to do the square root of 6 and get a decimal. Leave it just like that. Okay? So, what I want you to do, we skipped all these word problems. Okay? I want you to do the problem set. Skip number 1. On the problem set, I want you to do number 2, 3, 4, 5, and I want you to do number 6. Okay, now these are not a lot of problems, but some of them take longer than other problems. For example, number 5 and number 6 probably going to take you a minute. Okay, just give those a try. When you're done, upload your assignment to Google Classroom.